Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat Podcast. In this edition, we'll be talking about Tottenham's 2-2 draw at Goodison Park. I've literally just left the stadium, so I'm live from Liverpool. I've got three very special guests to talk about today's game. Before we do, we are live on YouTube, on X and Facebook, so please do get involved and give us your thoughts on today's game and performance. Of course, the game finished 2-2. Richarlison putting Spurs 1-0 up after 4 minutes. Harrison equalising for Everton in the 30th minute. Richarlison getting Tottenham's second goal of the game after 41 minutes. That is now 9 goals in 8 games for him. And Braithwaite, unfortunately for Tottenham, equalised in the 94th minute. Now, match stats today. Everton had 43% of the ball to Tottenham's 57%. Everton had 14 shots to Tottenham's 9. Shots on target, Everton had 5, Spurs had 6. Corners, Everton had 9 to Tottenham's 5. And fouls, Everton 8, Spurs 14. Now, Ange Postecoglou is disappointed. He has just come out and said, pretty disappointed, conceding so late. We had chances to kill them off and we didn't take them. That was the only threat that they had. We had to deal with them throwing balls into the box all game. Pickford pulled off 2 or 3 good saves. We just couldn't get the third. And Ange Postecoglou on goal scorer, Richarlison said, Richarlison has been good for us for a while, not just his goals, but his all-round play. Now, back with us is Daily Mail journalist Josh Hughes. Josh, how are you?
Yeah, pretty annoyed, to be honest. I think it was pretty inexcusable what we witnessed in stoppage time today. And a lot of alarm bells starting to ring. I think very clear that we're nowhere near where we'd like to be. And there's a lot of room for improvement. There's some positive signs, but yeah, just a few too many negative things repeating themselves in games. And yeah, it could have happened against Brentford. It didn't, luckily, but against Everton, it cost us. So yeah, I think as every Spurs fan feels right now, pretty annoyed and frustrated.
Also joining us is returning guest all the way from Singapore, Dustin Lau, of course, former editor at ESPN Star Sports. Dustin, great to have you here. How are you?
All right. How are you doing?
Very good. Very good. Lovely to have you here, Dustin. We'll get your thoughts on the game in just a second. Also joining us is channel regular Josh Cowlin. Josh, how are you?
Yeah, frustrated as we all are. But yeah, it's nice to be back on, and yeah, we'll dissect the game.
Absolutely. Well, Dustin, let's start the show with you. Let's get your thoughts on today's game, because I tell you what, I've just left the stadium and it does feel very, very disappointing to drop 2 points today, particularly Everton in the relegation zone. Everton, before today's game, only 1 win in 9 in the Premier League. It just didn't seem that Everton were going to get anything out of this game. What did you make of it?
I think that they had one tactic, which is basically we're going to harass Vicario. We're going to copy Pep, right? We're just going to harass Vicario. We're going to try to get him to drop a ruck and then score off that. And they did it once. They almost did it again. Other than, an incredible save from Vicario with his feet. But I think they stopped that completely after halftime. So I think the theme really is that we need to start protecting Vicario and coming up with a way of stopping that, because now that it's happened twice, I can foresee other teams are going to do that. And I think the other part is like our loss of control down the middle. Once we brought Richarlison on and we took off Højbjerg, all of the players, I think there were 4 players I saw that just lost control of the ball in midfield, and that resulted in us conceding the free kick and the goal.
Josh, what did you make of it? Josh Cowlin.
Yeah, I have to go through with the Joshes again.
Sorry.
That's all right. Yeah, frustrating. I agree with Dustin. We just all collapsed at the end, didn't it? When Dragusin came on, it just felt like we lost a bit of composure, giving away silly fouls, set pieces. And I thought, yeah, that was a cracking bit of game management from Sean Dyche to just we looked shocking on set pieces. We were getting Vicario was just getting abused all game, and yeah, I agree with what Dustin said. I think this is going to be a problem that's going to continue going forward, and it's quite good that the boys need to adapt to it now, and they're going to have to come up with solutions and in training, and I'm sure they will do. They're not going to keep letting this happen. They're going to have to practice their set pieces, keep training, and fix this issue, because it seems like we're going to get targeted, because he's not the biggest boy, Vicario. He's got great feet. He's a great shot stopper. But if this seems like his kind of Achilles heel, his physicality, getting done at the back post. So yeah, it's a tricky one. But to be quite honest, I think we should give credit to Everton, because with their points deduction and I think they put up a lot of fight today. And although we are known for bottling it at the last minute and conceding late goals, I think that was a very commendable performance from Everton to actually come back and score in the 94th minute.
I've got to say their fans were extremely quiet inside Goodison Park today. Josh, let's stay with you for a second, because as you know, inside Goodison Park, you don't get any phone reception whatsoever. I haven't seen any footage or any pictures yet of the supposed offside. It went to VAR right at the end. Was that the correct decision for you?
Well, I looked at it on the TV. I got up. I got up with my mate. I started pointing it out. I don't know, Chris, because I was pointing at Branthwaite and looking at Romero, and the lines they put on just looked a bit odd. But I don't know. It's tricky to decipher these VAR decisions and the lines they draw on. At the end of the day, we shouldn't have conceded that goal, and it was coming, Chris. We lost control of the game when Dragusin was barging everyone about, acting like some kind of maverick at the back. We'd lost control of the game, and that equaliser was coming for a long time, in my opinion.
As Steve writes here, the last 5 games, the last 5 visits to Goodison Park have all ended as a draw. Josh Hughes, let's come to you. Your thoughts on today's game and the decision at the end. Was that right for you?
Yeah, it was fine. The offside, I'm not going to, the lines came up. They've given it as, onside. I'm going to live with that. That's not the reason why we didn't come away with a win today. We didn't finish our chances. We didn't kill the game. Werner showed very, very little maturity with his runs today. Brennan Johnson should have had what would have been a very good assist, but Werner decides to try and wait for the ball to just arrive rather than go and attack it. At worst, he's going to win a penalty. And at best, it's going to end up in the back of the net. This is just a bit of confidence. And this is someone that, he's been around the block enough to know when to make these runs. So I was really disappointed with that. Felt like Kulusevski came on and the game changed and not in a good way. Gives away a completely needless foul with that goal at the end there. All you need to do is clear the ball or get rid. And he gives the ball away, gives away a silly foul. And as has been a bit of an issue for us, a recurring theme for us, we're not great at defending from set pieces. We're good at attacking from them, but defensively, we're nowhere. So that's now the last 3 goals that we've conceded. In fact, so 2 today. There was, I think, 1 against Brentford, and then there was 1 against City. So 4 out of the last, I think, 5 goals that we conceded have come from some form of set piece. So there's alarm bells ringing for me. We should not be going through every game, making sides look better than they are, conceding 2 goals minimum a game. We can't keep going like this. We need to show some composure and some game management at the end. We're still trying to play this front foot attacking football, which, and I commend it, and I'm all for the way that we play, but there's a point at which it becomes kamikaze at the end of the game when you haven't killed it, and they're a very physical side like Everton. You've got both Porro and Udogie, who I thought actually generally had pretty good games, Udogie in particular, still bombing forward with no protection that late into the game in stoppage time. Why is that happening? You've got to, if you can't kill the game, you've got to at least then protect what you have. Some positives today, but again, it's just that the stat speaks for itself. Spurs now 8 goals conceded after the 90th minute, the most in the Premier League. It's worrying.
Dustin, let's come to you. When you look at the league table here, we've now played 23. We've got 44 points. We're now 7 points away from league leaders Liverpool. They have a game in hand. Manchester City, we're 2 points away from them. They've got 2 games in hand. We're 2 points away from Arsenal. They've also got a game in hand now. And Aston Villa are just behind us with 43 points. They've got a game in hand. Can I ask you how you felt being a Spurs fan so far this season, what you've seen so far? Because, of course, we met in Singapore during pre-season. We didn't know really what to expect under Ange Postecoglou. What have you made of it in the last 6-7 months?
Well, when we met in Singapore, Harry Kane was still with us, and we hadn't seen Ange ball really in its pomp. I think that whatever it is, before the start of the season, we were a bit in your hand off to be in the position we're in at now, because we knew that it would be a transitional season. We had all these warnings from people that knew about Ange saying, "Oh, the first season is going to be rough," and it started so well that I think we kind of forgot that advice, which is it was going to be rough, and these are the rough spots. He still only had so far 2 transfer windows to get people in. I think that the trajectory is going in the right direction. I think the signings have improved significantly because now we've got a combination of data-led signings and Paratici. So I think that at least in that area, we are doing a lot better. I think that there are still certain gaps, particularly with the way certain players are playing, but because they're new. I think that Werner and Johnson basically have the opposite problem, which is one has no end product, but has was willing to take his man on. That's Werner, and then you have Johnson, who has a great cross, but doesn't beat his man at all. And I think that if we could swap those attributes, so they could trade with each other and improve each other in those aspects, and Johnson could use some of Werner's confidence as well, I think that will improve significantly. But I think it's actually when Postecoglou tries to close out games and he takes off a midfielder for a centre back, at that point the team needs to adapt because you've lost someone in midfield and you're still trying to charge down the middle. You've got a man less to make those runs, and that's why I think that we lose control in games once we take off the midfielder. But we're still trying to play the same way and like pass through the middle. But you've got one man less to do that, which is why Kulu lost the ball, which is why Udogi lost the ball, Sa lost the ball. I counted 4 people losing the ball in injury time, trying to still move up the centre as if they still had Højbjerg there.
Dustin, Josh Hughes mentioned about Kulusevski when he came on, he felt the game changed. I felt the game changed when James Maddison went off. And when when a player like that, an experienced player like that, goes off the pitch at that stage of the game, did Ange get it right in terms of subs at the end of the game, in your opinion?
I think that there's a difficult scenario where you need to manage minutes, and I think the part that's always missing is that we always, as fans, think about game state, which is like he was playing well, why do you take him off? But then they have all the data, they understand when a player might be redlining. They might go, he can play at most like 60 minutes, 70 minutes of high intensity, otherwise we risk re-injuring him. So I will give him the benefit of the doubt. It may be that he needs to keep him fit. But I think that the players also need to adapt to, if you don't have a pass, you don't have a line breaker like Maddison there, you don't have someone that can instinctively protect the ball, find a pass, then you have different attributes in your midfield. So you can't attempt to play the same way. You have to recognize that you now have a different kind of player there. You have a Skip or a Højbjerg. You don't have a Maddison that is, going to make your runs. So you have to adapt your game slightly because the attributes of the person that has replaced Maddison is completely different, and you can't try to continue to play the game in the middle through the same way.
Josh Cowlin, let's come to you. Timothy writes here, Chris, VAR missed fouls on the goalkeeper. Did you watch the game? Yeah, I've just come out of the stadium, actually. I don't know why you're giving a dig at me, but I was going to come on to that because the Everton fans didn't seem very happy with the referee. The Spurs fans didn't seem very happy with the referee. Josh, I know we don't normally talk about referees and officiating, but what did you make of Mike Oliver's performance today?
One thing I noted personally was the amount of times our players were going down holding their head. And the rule is you have to stop play when a player goes down with a head injury. And Michael Oliver was just playing on, not noticing players clearly holding their head. There was a case where Udogi went down. There was another case where someone else went down. And I just thought, what are you doing? Like, why is this ref not actually going with the rules? Like, the quality of refereeing in the Premier League, let's not get too bogged down in this, but the quality of the refereeing in the Premier League is just dissipating constantly. It is so poor. And I think, well, with what you said, Chris, the Everton fans weren't happy. We're not that happy. It's a common theme in the Premier League that it's just not good enough. And that it needs to improve because it's really gone down the toilet in recent years, in my opinion.
Josh, let's stay with you. Craig writes here, no fouls on Vicario, needs to be stronger. Now, of course, Josh Hughes mentioned that. You've mentioned it already about the the situation with Vicario after the Manchester City game. Is this a fact now where he will need to be stronger in future games? Because, Dustin even said he's going to be a target.
Yeah, it's an issue now. It's a bit like, one thing I can think of is a bit like when Dele Alli, his aggression came out and people started targeting him for that. This is gonna happen now continuously, and they've got to sort that out, and they've got to get him stronger, and that's just going to take training. That's going to take a lot of kind of pre-match on the training ground, in the gym, and that is something he can work on. Look, none of us are saying that Vicario is the best keeper in the whole world. Like, he's a great keeper. He's just come in. He's gonna have flaws. These teams are going to expose some of his flaws, and this clearly is one. And no player is perfect. No goalkeeper is perfect. So he's going to have to work on it, and that's going to improve him as a goalkeeper. And I think he's got a terrific foundation. He's got some great skills. Like I said before, he's a great shot stopper. He's got a lot of confidence. I like him as a goalkeeper. I feel confident as a fan with him between the two goalposts. And I think it's almost a good thing that he's got something to improve on, because he can only get better. So look, I don't think it's an issue, and my mate wasn't too happy with him, or getting nervous. What about Fraser Forster? Kind of, what are our other options? I thought I was a bit. I wasn't too sure about that. I've got faith in him, in Vicario, and I feel happy as a fan with him as our goalkeeper.
Josh Hughes,
if you don't mind, sorry, I would like to follow on with a point about Vicario. I think that a goalkeeper can be stronger, but if you've got a huge lump of a centre back there, there's a point that the centre backs need to help him out. Now, if maybe we don't want to sacrifice Romero to help him out, but even if you had two smaller players that get Harrison out of the way, Harrison's not the biggest player in the world. It's just that he was hassling Vicario the entire way. He did basically hassled Vicario 6 times in the first half, and one of them was the goal. And past a certain point, you just put two smaller players or a larger player, and just block Harrison off like an NFL line, an NFL offensive line protects the ball carrier, and you just do something like that. So it's a combination of Vicario getting stronger in the air, but it's also a combination of the team realizing that they should have done that. In fact, during the Man City game when Diaz was in his face, I was already saying in the first half we should have been protecting him in the Man City game, because if he doesn't concede that goal, teams don't start targeting him.
Josh Hughes, let's come to you. Before we talk about the starting 11, just want to talk a little bit about Mickey van der Ven, because we've all spoken about, us being defensively poor and conceding all of these goals. Mickey van der Ven today was absolutely exceptional, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. And he bailed us out because we were poor. And that's the thing, is what we did was we 100% relied on his pace. And that's all well and good for now. But that shouldn't be the only thing that we have going for us defensively, is relying on one player's pace. Because there's going to be times, and there were times today, where if Everton had a little bit more quality and you come up against a better team than Everton's a really poor outfit, really poor side compared to some of the teams in this league. We're going to get hurt. We're going to get punished, and it's not going to work every game. I understand, playing a high line, and it's all well and good if you can catch them offside. But, a fit and firing Calvert-Lewin, a confident Calvert-Lewin, provides a completely different threat to what Everton had today. And not always are you going to be able to rely on Mickey van der Ven. He was magnificent. And if Richarlison hadn't scored 2 unbelievably good goals today, he would be 100% man of the match. If I could give them the award to share, I would. He's just tremendous. One of the best signings we've made in recent years, no doubt about it. But it's where, if we want to be successful and we want to get to where we want to be, and this season, if we can get Champions League, that will be an unbelievable achievement for us, considering where we were. We're going to need to be able to rely on all 4 of our defenders, or all 5 of our defenders, whatever system we end up playing going forward, as much as we do on Van der Ven. We shouldn't be just relying on one player, So that's the only thing. I think Van der Ven, magnificent. And, I've got a Van der Ven shirt. It's the only shirt I've got this season is a Van der Ven shirt. I wear it for every single game that I'm at. But yeah, I think that the only thing is, you know, when are we going to start relying on our fullbacks and our midfielders and you know, Romero or whoever's partnering Van de Ven as much? That's the only thing. But yeah, run out of positives that you can say about Van de Ven. The guy is incredible.
Well, Josh, does it make it worse for you that we conceded in the time that we did, when you've got Romero, Van de Ven, and of course Dragusin come on as well, with the three of them at the back?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good assist from Romero. I think that I don't want to get at him too much because I don't think there's a huge amount that he could have done. Perhaps, maybe if we're being really critical, a little bit more awareness of what was behind him. But when you've got three centre backs on, you're doing that, or I'd assume that Ange is making that call because he feels that it gives us more strength and solidity at the back to deal with their physical presence. And we failed to deal with that.
Dustin, let's come to you. Let's talk a little bit about the starting 11 today. Vicario in goal, the back four of Porro, Romero, Van de Ven, Udogie. In midfield, Højbjerg, Bentancur, and then the attacking force of Johnson, Maddison, Timo Werner, and Richarlison. Subs today: Skip, Dragusin, Brian Hill, Emerson Royale, Forster, Kulusevski, Sarr, Ben Davis, and Dane Scarlett. Any surprises there for you in the starting 11? Of course, Ange made a couple of changes in that Brentford game. Of course, he made a couple of half-time changes, Johnson and Højbjerg, and of course they were in the starting 11 today. Were you surprised by that starting 11 from Ange?
I think the starting 11 for now picks itself primarily because we've got players out, we've got players either injured or overseas on duty. Sarr has just come back as well. I think that Sarr, had he been fit, would have been a big difference. But we have what we have. I think that Højbjerg isn't the fastest player in the world, and I think that he's probably the player that might frustrate Ange the most when he's the one most prone to making long passes that just go out, which is a waste of possession. But what he does provide is that he does provide the harrying and the support and the one-touch passing that the team needs when they're trying to progress the ball. So he's not the best player, but he fits the role there. And normally when we're trying to defend the lead at the end and he's the player that comes off, but what happens as a result is we lose so much control there and we lose another presser in midfield. So we really get hemmed into our final third as opposed to playing the ball in the either the middle third or the opponent's third. So when Højbjerg goes off for a centre back, I think that that's the change where the team actually needs to switch gears into. They are going to play more defensively. They should play more defensively because they don't have the personnel to actually go down the middle anymore. And I'm not saying that we should switch to a defensive mode entirely. I'm just saying that the personnel and the change in formation means that you just don't have the right people in the right places to play the exact same way. So the team needs to understand that there are units in the game. There's the midfield unit, and then that also connects to the centre backs when they're trying to play it out, and it also connects to the wing backs when they invert in. Once you have a person in there that's missing, and now what you have is Dragusin, who's a centre back, who has completely different passing attributes and completely different composure under the ball, you can't still play the same way because you don't have Højbjerg to do the one-touch pass to, or you don't have him to do the switch, which are the main attributes that he has. So they need to understand the change in personnel better, and I think this is coming with coaching as well. Ange probably coaches them on, like, when we have a different player in, you use him in a different way because he has different attributes.
Dustin, on Pierre-Emile Højbjerg and Brian Hill in particular, those two, it looked like they were going to go out the door in the January transfer window. Are you surprised that both of them have stayed? And more so, are you surprised that they were heavily involved today?
I think whenever anyone goes out the door, it's also about who you can replace them with. And especially because they are foreign players, right? There is a quota there. So I think that it is a valuable slot, and if you can't replace it with someone that is either going to improve the squad or be maybe the first squad player that comes in on a change, then you're not really improving the squad that much. So it's also a question of January being not the best period to buy players. So if you can't get a replacement, like some people say we should replace Richarlison now that he's playing well and can get a good price for him. But it's also a question of for the price that you can get for him, can you actually buy a better player? And that's the difficulty there, which is even if you sold Højbjerg, who could you buy for the price we can get for him that actually replaces the attributes that he has. And that's the way I think Ange thinks about players. He doesn't think about them in terms of positions as a DM. Like, he said recently, he doesn't think of like a centre back as a left-footed or right-footed centre back. He just thinks of them as a player with these attributes, and the position is fluid depending on whether we're attacking or defending. So I think that he doesn't have a fit for replacing what those attributes are.
Josh Cowlin, let's come to you on the starting 11. Were you surprised when you saw Dejan Kulusevski on the sub bench?
Well, I think Ange needs to rotate, so we can't have the same boys playing every week. And I think we played literally 72 hours ago. Is that
but
true?
But the thing is, Ange actually said in his press conference when he was asked about can James Maddison play 2 games within 72 hours, his reply was, he's a professional footballer, mate. So why can't he play the same players?
No, that's true, Chris. I just thought that's just come to mind. Then maybe Kulu should have started. It's difficult because we've got so many of these players, so many talented forwards, and they've all got different attributes. And Kulu playing as a kind of central attacking midfield role, I didn't think was working too well. So obviously Maddison's come back in, but we've got to deal with Johnson and Werner, and it's difficult. How do we fit all these players in, Chris? It's a bit like Dragusin. Where's Dragusin going to fit in unless we get an injury?
That's exactly where I was going to go next. Where does he fit in? When does he start a game in a Spurs shirt in the Premier League?
But then that is just the case, Chris, of quality and depth. You look at Man City's bench; they've got so many good players, and it's just a case of rotating those great players. We have to have a decent bench, and I think our bench has been lacking for a long time. We need these players there, and having the ability to put Kulu on or have him and rotate him with a Johnson or a Werner on the wing is a good thing. But yeah, maybe with hindsight, he probably should have started today, and it was a bit of a shame. I thought Johnson was a bit of a passenger today. He really didn't do much for me. I couldn't clock on watching on the TV much that he contributed today. But one positive thing, which I'm sure we'll speak about in a bit, but I just want to compliment Richarlison. Not just his goal scoring attributes, but his hold-up players has improved tremendously. And it's quite impressive to watch Richarlison go from a kind of player who didn't contribute much at all and was being slated by the fans to someone who's actually week in, week out performing for Spurs quite impressively, banging in the goals, getting up the kind of goal scoring tables himself as an individual player. So I'm really impressed with Richarlison. And if there was one player that I would be shocked to be dropped, as you said, in the starting 11, that would be Rishi up front, because I think he solidified his position as our number 9.
Josh Hughes, let's come to you on the starting 11. Were you surprised by Ange's starting 11 today?
No, actually. I think Højbjerg came on, and although I think he struggled today a little bit, he was magnificent against Brentford, and he really changed the game for me with his progressive passes. And maybe, we could have gone with Kulusevski in the middle. I actually thought Papsar was more likely to play there than Kulusevski, given that I know he's just come back from AFCON, but he has been playing, minutes. And I suppose Brennan Johnson as well, he did get the goal. And, even though people... I've got a little bit of an issue with Brennan Johnson, and it's not with him as a player, but it's with our fan base. It just feels like we've always got to have one scapegoat player. Before Richarlison was scoring these goals, everyone was slating Richarlison. Now that people realise they would look like a fool if they start slating Richarlison because of his goal scoring, it's now got to be Brennan Johnson. When actually, I think that there were probably 3 or 4 players that could have taken some flack today and that probably aren't going to take the flack. Brennan Johnson, I kind of agree. I don't think he had a huge impact today, but he's there to get goals and assists. And if Werner did the basics of his job. You know, you've got a penalty or a goal that's assisted by Brennan Johnson. He did as well as he could in that moment. You know, I think with Brennan Johnson, I see his future as probably similar to that of Lucas Moura, where I think we could probably do with a better player starting there, but using him effectively as an impact player who will pop up with a goal and assist and give you a little bit of pace and threat. Yeah, I mean, I'm not actually overly surprised with the starting 11. But I think actually it was more the use of substitutions that was more of an issue.
Josh, you don't seem much of a fan of Timo Werner. What's your issue with him?
I really like the runs he makes on the whole, and I really like what he can give us. But Timo Werner goes through one-on-one. Son puts that chance away. Guaranteed goal with Son.
But like Ange said, if he was playing extremely well, we would have never have got him on loan in the first place. So do you think that Ange can now get the best out of Timo Werner from now until the end of the season? Because, of course, we do have that option to buy him in the summer.
Sure. Look, it's a good, cheap buyout option. So I think either way, it's not bad to have a player who's an international and his goal scoring rate for Germany has always been pretty good. He's got 3 goals now, 3 assists in 3 games in the Premier League. I'm not going to knock him for that. But the thing that we've also brought him in for is not just to get assists, but is to score goals. He goes through one-on-one. He's got to score there. He has an opportunity where all he's got to do is get in front of the defender and he's got a goal or a penalty. And for me, and I've seen this comment from Marky Mark, it says Werner needs a striker mentor. I agree. I think Werner's going to benefit massively from having Son back because, you know, I think Werner actually has a lot of similar attributes to Son in terms of, generally speaking, he's pretty good with both feet. He's got raw pace. When he actually runs at defenders, he can be incredibly dangerous. But I think, you know, for me, he's a player with enough quality that's been there long enough, has enough experience in big moments and in the Premier League to be able to take that chance or to be able to kill the game for us. And I think one thing I will praise him for is the fact that at least he is getting into those positions in the first place. It would be 10 times worse if he wasn't making those runs. So I think there's room to improve and I want to give him time. But ultimately, what cost us more than anything today was not killing the game. And Werner, I think on 2 occasions, should have killed the game.
Yeah.
I think that there's one thing that we should note is that we probably have the fastest left wing in the league right now because we have Van der Ven, Werner, and Udogie there. So I think that one of the problems that Werner has is that he's too fast. So he's normally one-on-one or he has a defender and a keeper, and there's no one else that is providing a threat that would draw the defender or the keeper out of position. So the defender and the keeper are both in ideal positions against one person. And I think that's where the right winger, which is Johnson or whoever may be over there, or someone that's making a late run in, needs to go in to draw people from Werner so that he can either hopefully shoot or at least make a pass. Because right now, whenever Werner uses his pace, he's one-on-one with a keeper and a defender on him in ideal positions. And I think that's where we're lacking, and that's what we need to work on, which is the support so that he's not there against 2.
Can I just come back to that? Because it's something really important with what you've said there, which is that lack of support. I think actually that comes down to the system more than anything. And if we end up, especially when we're looking to kill a game, right? And we've talked about Dragusin, right? And not maybe I've seen people in the comments saying, why are we giving him only 5 minutes? We need to give him more minutes. If we were to say, move to a back 3 to close a game, and you can keep another player on, I'm looking at when Son comes back, why not have Werner and Son as your 2 forward players? And you go into almost like a 3-5-2 or the 5 or a 5-3-2, however you want to look at it. Using
That's exactly what I was going to ask, Josh. When Heung-min Son does come back, does Werner still stay in this team?
I think we should be able to find ways to use both of them together. However, I think that in that moment where we were talking about this situation, Son has that pace to be able to provide that support to make it a 2v1 rather than a 1v1. And I think that's where we can get a lot of joy. But I think the only way we're really going to make that work is if we use 3 centre-backs. That's just my perspective of it. And maybe it's a case of Son will obviously start, but Richarlison, if we're going to take him off, we bring on Werner and then we've got two, rather than actually what happened today, which was we lost all of our attacking threat and our out ball towards the end of the game because they all came off. And then we're hanging on for 10 minutes against a very physical side that we're not beating in those duels.
There's actually a scenario where we can use that three centre-back system at the back that looks like a defensive move but can switch it into attacking move, which is you have Dragusin take over Van der Ven, and you have Van der Ven attacking, because his pace and the recovery pace for defending. In Volendam, he used to make late runs all the time. He had ridiculous statistics in Volendam because as a centre-back, he was making the runs you expect a wing-back to make. So it's something that like a lot of teams would not have been prepared for. And if you suddenly put in Dragusin and you think, oh, they're going to keep it tight, and Van der Ven goes on a run, no one is expecting that.
Dustin, let's stay with you. Let's get straight onto the game because Spurs did get off to the perfect start. Just after 4 minutes, we went 1-0 up after with Richarlison's goal, 8 in 8. As Josh Hughes mentioned there, Richarlison has had a lot of stick, particularly last season from a lot of Spurs fans. He's in great form right now. What did you make of the opening goal?
The opening goal is amazing, and I think it basically goes back to the point about like how a lot of the best attacks we have go down the left wing, because both of the attacks, even the one that he scored from outside, they started from someone getting all the way to the byline and cutting it back. And I think that's what Udogie did very early in the Man U game early on the season as well. I think when Ange ball is working the way he doesn't want crosses because he doesn't have a Harry Kane there to hit it in. So what he wants people cutting to the byline and cutting balls back. And that's why you have inverted wing backs that also can attack that late ball. So we have that working on the left. We don't really have that working on the right because the attributes of the players on the right are completely different. So I think that once we can get Johnson acting more like Werner in terms of making runs and keeping width, because he doesn't keep width now, he just passes it back. What Werner at least does, even though he's right-footed, is that he's at least maintaining the width, and it pulls the defenders apart and it gives spaces for the inverting wingbacks to go into. When Brennan Johnson passes it back, the right side is compacted. That's why we don't have much chance creation on the right, because defenders in the right can stay tight together. Whereas when Werner goes so wide to the left and uses that pace, it just pulls defenders out and then it creates spaces for us to move into.
Dustin, straight after the game, Ange Postecoglou was full of praise for Richarlison. He was also full of praise in his embargoed press conference as well that came out yesterday. He said that there is more growth for Richarlison. You as a Spurs fan, do you see there is more growth for Richarlison? Do you think that Ange can actually get a lot more out of him and he's all-round gameplay and more goals?
Did you remember at the start of the season when Richarlison wasn't scoring goals and everyone was frustrated with him, but Ange said he's still playing well? And that's because Richarlison is one of the best pressing strikers in the league. So I think Ange views him as a player that has attributes that he needs, which is pressure on the goalkeeper, pressure on the defenders, because a lot of the system relies on either creating turnovers or putting the defenses under pressure so that they hit a high ball that we can then win. So I think that the attributes that Richarlison has, even before he was scoring goals, he was really doing a lot of the things that Ange needed him to do. And now he's got confidence post-surgery and he's also scoring goals. So I feel that Ange will always look at the work rate and what you contribute to the system. He doesn't necessarily look at the result, which is like the assists or the goals. He looks at what do you contribute to the whole. And even if someone else scores the goal, I saw the work that you did.
Josh Cowlin, let's come to you. After 5 minutes, Calvert-Lewin headed over the bar. After 9 minutes, James Maddison had a shot from range. After 12 minutes, there was a corner come in, good punch away from Vicario. After 23 minutes, Everton, Calvert-Lewin threw on goal. Van der Ven out of nowhere with a great tackle. It was offside in the end, but I just want to touch again on Van der Ven. How good a defender is he for you? Because, when we remember the likes of Jan and Toby at the back, is he going to be as good as them?
Yeah, I mean, he's quality, Chris. He's unreal. His pace is unbelievable. He bails us out. He bails Romero out. I worry because he's so good, and the same can be said of, although sometimes an almost naive Udogie who can give the ball away a lot at the back, and we've conceded because of that. But I do worry the quality of some of these young boys is that they've got so much quality that other teams are going to come knocking. The Madrids, those types of sides, because I was just so impressed, especially with Van der Ven, as you say. I mean, watching him live, he's just so rapid. I've never seen anyone at the back that quick, and that just is exactly what we've called out for a long time. A pacey centre back, someone who's big, physical, does his job, isn't a lump of wood. Maybe someone who now plays Bayern Munich. Maybe we could say he's the opposite of the now Bayern Munich centre back. I'm so impressed with Mickey, and although we've conceded 2 today, I don't think it's you can kind of put the blame on our back four. In all honesty, I think we've crafted a back four that I'm really happy with. And although we were chatting about all the kind of combinations and the formations we could try with Dragusin, I worry that could be a bit of a mistake. I think if we stick with this quality back four, we can do serious things. I think they need to continue playing together, because we risk mucking about with that back four and playing 5 at the back or 3 at the back. And I worry that things might just break down, and it stresses me out. I quite enjoy watching a back four, and I think they're absolutely quality, those boys. And I'm really happy with how we've kind of transitioned from a very disappointing defence in previous years under Conte to such an impressive defence now. And they're going to make mistakes. They're young lads at the end of the day. Mickey Van der Ven is what, 20, early 20s. Same with Udogie. They're not going to be the finished article at the moment. So I think we continue with our trajectory as we go, and I think it will bring us good things, maybe even trophies, Chris.
Well, I think it's fair to say that I think a lot of fans sometimes forget how young these players are, and a lot of them are still developing. Before we continue talking about the game, Josh Hughes, I know you've got to leave us because you've got to go to work. But last question for you before you leave us. What did you make of the January transfer window for Spurs? On mute, Josh.
It's like going back to lockdown again. 9.5 out of 10. 9.5 out of 10. Could have been. It's so hard to get a 10 out of 10. I think the only way it would have been a 10 out of 10 is if we'd signed some crazy, expensive, proven goal scorer that comes in and has scored, a few goals straight away or whatever it is, which you're hardly ever going to have for any club in any window. So I think it's pretty much as good as it could have possibly been. Bergvall, incredible talent. Can't believe we've beaten Barcelona to him. This is a guy that, is coming into the club, and he's going to be, pretty much in and around the first team straight away. I think they pointed out with a bit of help of agent Kulusevski, Pap Sarr is the kind of example of this is what you can be here at the football club. Timo Werner, very clever deal. I think we can get a lot more from him. At that price, I think it's a great deal, and he's already made an impact with those 3 assists. And then Dragusin, I think a little bit jury's out when it comes to him because he's not played the minutes yet. But again, there's a reason why he was so highly sought after in that window, why Bayern Munich, why Napoli were interested in him. So we went in with a purpose in this window. We went early. We got 2 players we desperately needed to get in. And then at the end, we finished strong as well, pipping Barcelona to probably one of the most exciting midfielders in Europe. And yet again, it's another 18-year-old, another player under the age of 21, 22, that for Daniel Levy is going to be rubbing his hands with glee because the sell-on value will be incredible. But also what we're doing is we're kind of creating a team now where, fingers crossed, in a year, 2 years' time, we're going to have a collection of about 6 or 7 really talented youngsters, supplemented with then experience in the likes of Romero, Maddison, Son. And that could be a really good recipe for getting success. So it's super exciting. What a window.
Josh, thanks so much for joining us. Before you leave us, tell everyone where they can find you and your wonderful work that you do.
at Josh Hughes TV and at Mail Sport. We're covering everything, every big event, Premier League, Champions League, golf, Six Nations, Olympics, Euros, you name it, Mail Sport's covering it. So yeah, at Josh Hughes TV, if you enjoy talking Spurs and if you just want, good sports content, at Mail Sport. Thanks once again for having me on. Been a pleasure as always, and good to meet you guys.
Josh, look forward to having you on again very soon. Thanks so much, and speak to you soon.
Take care.
Dustin, let's come to you. Calvert-Lewin had a header wide after 25 minutes. A minute later, another brilliant tackle from Mickey van der Ven on McNeil. And then 4 minutes later, of course, Everton equalised, making it 1-1. Calvert-Lewin got the header from a corner. And then, of course, Harrison headed home for 1-1. What did you make of the goal that we conceded?
It was all about Vicario harassment. So what I noted was that he was harassed in place, meaning that the defender was in his face the way Diaz was for the first two. And then after that, Harrison realized that, Vicario was pushing him away. So Harrison just went away. And what he did was once the ball was in the air, he would run in and harass Vicario. So again, people are going to watch that. The next team we're playing is going to watch that and go, that's how you harass Vicario. They might even use two players. So that's why I said earlier, we need to start having drills around recognizing this is happening and having players block it off if we need to. It's like a basketball screen or an NFL kind of linebacker, like a protect the ball carrier. We need to do something like that to protect Vicario. But in the second half, I don't understand why Everton stopped it completely. In the second half, Vicario went into the half strong and he claimed a couple of high balls. But I think that we need to prepare for other teams doing this to us, and we need to start training on who's going to be the enforcer that keeps Vicario safe when that happens.
Dustin, can I ask, were you surprised by Everton's approach today? Because, as I mentioned earlier, one win in their last 9 before today's game in the Premier League, sitting in the relegation zone. Their fans are very unhappy at the moment, unhappy with the way that the Premier League have deducted them 10 points. Very quiet in their stadium today. But their team, and of course, I didn't even mention the amount of injury problems that they've got at the moment going into today's game. But it just seemed that, winning the ball, being first to the ball in so many situations in today's game at this half-hour point. Were you surprised by Everton's approach?
A part of it, as a Spurs fan, is going, Dr. Tottenham will see you now. You haven't had a win in like however long. Here's your first points. I thought
we'd moved on from that.
I think it's a combination of them. It is a siege mentality, right? They feel like the league is against them. They have the protests going on. So I think these are the kinds of things that galvanize teams. And I think a part of it as well is that post the Liverpool game, we have also had the least decisions for us. There are games where our players get kicked lumps off. There are a number of times where players are holding their head for a concussion and the referee just lets the game play on. So I think to a certain extent, I'm not going to go it's a conspiracy, but I think that at a certain extent, we're not actually getting the rub of the green when it comes to refereeing decisions. Also, it seems that there's a change in refereeing now where goalkeepers are not going to be as protected as they used to be. I feel where we missed an opportunity is that the norm has been set. You're not going to protect the goalkeeper. Pickford is smaller than Vicario is. We've got bruisers. Why isn't Romero and Van der Ven going to push Pickford over and then we score a goal in the same way? Because you didn't give the decision against us. We were going to bully Pickford the same way. So we need to be a little smarter about things like that as well. If you're going to be exploited that way for Vicario, then do it against Pickford. He's smaller than him.
Josh, let's come to you. In the 40th minute, Spurs took the lead. Richarlison, yet again, 9 Premier League goals in his last 8 Premier League games. I know you touched on Richarlison earlier, but how impressed have you been with his turnaround, particularly the goal scoring?
Very, very impressed, Chris. What a finish that second goal was as well.
Unbelievable, yeah.
What a strike. And tricky James Maddison, nice little assist there. To tap it to him, and what a goal! The way he curved his body, it was Coutinho-esque, like a cat. I thought it was fabulous. Yeah, I'm so impressed with Richarlison. It's just week in, week out, performing. Like I said earlier, Chris, it's not just his goals; it's his hold-up play. And even today, I think he demonstrated that. He's been dropping deep, releasing the ball well. Before, in the earlier games in the season, just getting held up a bit on the ball, losing the ball. But now I think he's got his confidence back, and he just looks really impressive. Yeah, as Enrique says, just really impressive. And I think he can only go onwards and upwards from here, and hopefully he'll get himself back into the Brazilian squad. Don't think he was in it in the last time that they had a selection. And I think he's got great he's got a great ceiling. He can keep improving, Richarlison. He's a good player, and I'm really happy that it's come good for him at Spurs, because for a long time it just wasn't working out, was it? He was misfiring, and it was quite dejecting to see a player of quality not performing at our football club when we spent 60 million, about 50 odd mil on him. So yeah, I'm glad it's come good, and he's got great quality. And I think he'll keep delivering as we come into the final third of the season.
What I'm really happy about... Sorry.
Go on, Dustin.
No, why I'm really happy about Richarlison scoring from distance outside the box today is that it means that teams defend him a different way. What's brilliant about Son is that he's so two-footed, so defenders can't show him on his weak side. He doesn't have a weak side. Similarly, Richarlison, he's always known for scoring headers in the box, so they don't worry about him shooting from distance. After this goal, they're going to have to worry about that, and they're going to have to push up to defend him, and that creates more spaces for him if the shot is blocked, because they're worried about him shooting from distance, might create space for someone making a deep run in. So I love that he's scoring different kinds of goals, because it means that defenders have to worry about more things, and then that puts them out of position, and they have to worry a lot more about Richarlison, and then more people will get space.
Well, in the 43rd minute, Everton had a chance. McNeil shooting from range went wide. A couple of minutes later, Romero gave the ball away on the edge of the box. Dustin, does it surprise you that a player like Christian Romero gives the ball away so easily like that, particularly when the likes of Lionel Messi have said that he's the best defender in the world, and then he just makes some silly mistakes sometimes, just giving the ball away carelessly?
I think that's a combination of the kind of pressure that a player is under. So players will make individual mistakes, but systems are meant to prevent players from making individual mistakes. So even the way we play out from back, if we play out from the back in a haphazard way without a plan or without these routines, how often have you seen a guy running in from deep to provide the bounce pass so that the centre backs can pass out? So I think that what happens is that if the routines break down, or if you change the personnel behind the routines, the automatic muscle memory pass doesn't exist, because maybe Højbjerg is out and we have a centre back instead. So I think what happens is that we're changing around too much at the end, and then players haven't had time to adapt to what the change is. The other point I'll make about Romero is that we may have had 3 centre backs on, but none of our centre backs, I think, are particularly strong in the air. Van der Ven, for all his height, isn't a monster in the air for whatever reason. Lucas Moura is better in the air than many of our centre backs. Eric Dyer was a centre back that was stronger in the air than the other two. So I think that's one thing we need to consider, is that our centre backs, despite their height or power on the ground, aren't the strongest in the air. And we should think about that if we're trying to defend the league against a team like Everton that have huge bruisers that can come in when it's late in the game and they're chasing it.
Josh, let's come to you. How are you feeling at half-time? Spurs 2-1 up.
I wasn't too happy with our performance, even though we were 2-1 up. I thought Everton brought it to us. I just felt that mentality that Everton have. Sometimes we can struggle when another team has got a siege mentality, and they feel like the whole league's against them, and it just got progressively more strenuous as the second half went on, and we didn't get the third goal. I thought getting that third goal would just kill the game, and we'd cruise home. But because we just couldn't, and that, as we've talked about, unfortunately, Werner going in one-on-ones, just missing them when someone like Son is going to clinically put that in the top right. That cost us. I think not getting that third goal, it was just inevitable. It felt inevitable for me that Everton were going to equalise. I felt like it was ebbs and flows. The game was we had a bit of control, and then Everton were dominating as it always does in the second half. It's so annoying because like the amount of times I've come on here with you, Chris, and we've seen a bottle in the last minute, or like going a couple of goals up and then not getting over the line. It's annoying when we go back into the kind of Dr. Tottenham mode, because I feel like Ange has definitely since Ange come in, our mentality has definitely changed. Yeah. And it's disheartening as a Tottenham fan after all the years of what we've had to watch and endure to kind of go back into that mode. But at the end of the day, how many goals have we scored in the last minute? Quite a few. We've done pretty well as a side under Ange, putting goals past other teams, and a team like Everton in the contextual situation that they face with their points deduction. I'm not surprised. We're not getting a third goal. I'm not surprised. And although a lot of people in the comments saying, "Oh, it feels like a loss," I'm sure it does for you, Chris. I know how long that takes to drive up to
it does, yeah.
Liverpool.
Yeah.
It's a long way. It's brutal, and obviously you can see Anfield in the background of your car. Yeah, it is tough and it's annoying. And I remember going up there myself. It was Conte's first game, and it was a 0-0 draw. Yeah. It's a difficult place to go, Everton, for one, because of their situation, and two, they're a decent side, although they're not in the past 9 games or whatever the stat. They're a decent side, and they want to stay in the Premier League. So although it's still a point, and it's a point closer to Champions League football, and that's all I want to see. As long, at least we didn't lose today, Chris, and we actually just got a point. That's a positive that I can take.
Yeah, and I do agree with you. I do think we're going to lose that horrible word that I hate, Spursy. I do think we're going to lose that Spursy tag under Ange Postecoglou. And of course, we all know we're in a process, but it is disappointing. And I do feel like it is a defeat today in the manner that we've drawn the game right at the end. And I know that Ange Postecoglou is very disappointed. He's just had his press conference. It's only 3 minutes long. I think that says a lot. Dustin, let's come to you. After 50 minutes, Pedro Porro with a shot. Pickford saved. Højbjerg then had a shot over the bar after 52 minutes. A minute later, ball over the top. Mickey van der Ven out of nowhere. Fantastic tackle, as we've mentioned. A number of great tackles today. A minute later, James Maddison with an excellent through ball to Timo Werner. Pickford with a save. Dustin, how confident are you that Ange Postecoglou is going to get the very best out of Timo Werner and scoring opportunities like this? Because as Josh mentioned there, a key moment in the game, you go 3-1 up. Surely the game is then put to bed.
Yeah, that's true. I think that, part of the problem with looking at people in terms of like what their position is supposed to be is everyone looks at Werner and goes, he should be scoring. And maybe that's Ange's plan for him in the future. But I think what he needs Werner to do, because that's what Ange wants of his wingers, he wants them to maintain width. A big part of like Ange's system is you need the wingers to maintain width because your wingbacks are inverting inside. So if no one's maintaining width, then the teams can just pack the center and there's no opportunity. So Werner having pace and maintaining width is like the most important thing that he does for Ange ball. Similar to how like Richarlison pressing defenders is the most important thing he does for Ange ball. So even if Werner isn't scoring, as long as he's doing that part well, everything that he does as a bonus on top of that is bonus gravy. It's just maintain the width, pull the defenders out. Udogi goes into there, because both of our chances again came from like the left byline, because it was either Werner's pace and a pass out or something like that. So as long as we keep doing that, we're going to create those cutbacks, which is where we've seen so many goals come from so far, with like Udogi, Maddison, Son, Richarlison. They've all scored from cutbacks from the left wing. We don't see enough of that from the right side. I think that we're fine on the left. I think that what we need to do is we need to work on movement so that Werner isn't doing it alone and there are other people supporting it, because that makes the opportunities happen.
Dustin, what did you make of James Maddison's performance today? Because, of course, he had a shot saved from Jordan Pickford after 58 minutes. But what have you made of him since he's returned from injury?
I think that he was extremely leggy in his first game. And, he came on as a substitute against, I think it was against City. And, it was as good as not having a substitute, but I think he was very off the pace in the first game. But his vision, his ability to pass, his ability to recycle the ball, he has what the Spanish call pausa, right? Which is knowing when to pause, knowing when to speed up the game. He dictates the game like a conductor, and we've missed that for months. So now that we have him back in the team, it's also about the supporting cast coming back in. It's about having the energy of Sa. It's about having Bissouma mopping up behind him. I think what happens is that when you don't have those two players, or you don't have those options or attributes, then you have basically Højbjerg, Skip, and Bentancur, which are decent, but there is a certain pace and energy that Sa gives you, covering every blade of grass, that is a missing attribute behind Maddison, because he can use Sa to speed up the play, or he can say, I can push up here because I don't worry about losing the ball because I know someone will cover me from behind. So I think that once we have the full unit, the midfield unit back from AFCON, we will also see a different side of Maddison, because he can then play with players with different attributes supporting him.
Josh, let's come to you after 60 minutes. Great play from Destiny Udogie. Tried to set up Richarlison for his hat-trick, but his shot was very quickly blocked. 4 minutes later, and made a couple of subs. Bentancur off, Sa on. Of course, he's back from the Africa Cup of Nations. Johnson off, Kulusevski on. What did you make of the double sub at that point?
I thought Bentancur needed to come off, Chris. Although he got that horrible ACL injury, and the worry about an ACL is that it can change a player, and I hope he can get back to his best, because he's a quality player, but today he was well off it. He needed to have come off earlier, in my opinion. I don't know what you thought, Chris, watching in the stadium of Bentancur's performance, but on the TV, he just looked well off it. Giving away the ball a lot, consistently giving away the ball. It was just disappointing. He didn't look like himself at all, Chris.
But I felt a lot of players gave the ball away needlessly today.
Yeah. I thought it was, in terms of the sub, I thought, he needed to come off. It's so good having Sa back, because he's just unbelievable. I think he's an unbelievable youngster. What a player. And we've needed him. We've cried out for him, especially when you've got Højbjerg and Bentancur, and with a leggy Bentancur, and Højbjerg isn't the quickest. You need that kind of agility that Sa brings. I think watching him live, he brings agility, he brings pace and power, and he himself is quite a big figure. When you watch him, he's quite a tall, long figure. He brings something different to those two players, and I'm glad we've got him back, and I can't wait until we've got Bissouma back, because those early games this season where we really started playing pure Ange ball with Sa and Bissouma and Maddison in midfield, I think we're crying out for that back, because if you look at it in terms of like macro level analysis, I feel like we, in the past couple of games, because we've lost Son, because we've lost these guys who've gone to AFCON, we've just lost a bit of our identity. We've lost this kind of Ange ball, fluid football, and it's just not quite clicking. You can see it's not quite clicking compared to, I think, for example, that Bournemouth away game, where quick passing, bang, 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 in the net, James Maddison.
I don't want to make excuses, Josh, or defend some performances or results, but Andrew's had it really difficult since he's arrived. All of the injuries, all the suspensions, all of the problems on and off the pitch, and we're still sitting in the top four. So that's the positive I take out of it. And I do feel that there is such exciting times to come, because as Josh Hughes mentioned earlier about the players that we're signing, the direction that this club is going in, and how Andrew's turned it around so quickly. Imagine if he's got all of those tools at his disposal to really kick on.
Yeah, no, Chris, I totally agree. I'm actually not, funny enough, I'm not that annoyed. I'm a bit frustrated because of the result, but the overall trajectory of Spurs at the moment is so much more positive than it was under Jose and Conte, where we just faced like a big brick wall of defensive football. Look, the sky's the limit for us now. We're playing this proper, pure Ange ball. I think it's absolutely brilliant. It's so entertaining. And what I was trying to say is that I just think it's just misclicking at the moment. And once we've got all the boys back, we've got Son back and we've got Bissouma back, and they're all fit, and we've got Maddison, who's looking a little bit leggy himself, only just come back from injury. When they're all back together and we've got our best starting 11 like back, I think we can go anywhere, Chris. I think we can turn over anyone, and we can achieve big things with Ange. And that doesn't take away from the result today. I think it's always going to happen. We're always going to drop points. We're not gonna be invincible, Chris. And I think at the end of the day, we've got a point. We're still in the top 4. We've got to keep fighting for the top 4. And then if we do achieve Champions League football at the end of the season, I think we can all say that it's been a very good first season for Ange. Getting us back into Champions League would be absolutely fantastic.
Checkmate 734, I think, agrees with what you said earlier, Josh, about giving Everton credit for their performance today. Dustin, let's come to you. 5 minutes from time in the 85th minute, and made a double sub. Timo Werner off, Maddison off, Skip on, and Brian Hill on. This is what I said earlier, where I felt the game changed somewhat with James Maddison going off. What did you make of that double sub at the time?
Maddison going off, I think, probably was a bit to keep him fit. Skip going on, I mean, we have our opinions about Skip. I think that he is a squad player, and you're not going to get a squad player for the price Skip is, because he's from the youth team. I think that having Brian Hill on when you're trying to defend the game doesn't make sense, because he's a player that comes on when you're still attacking. And if you bring him on and you don't have Werner, like, I think Hill and Werner as a combination would be interesting, because Hill can do some of the press breaking and release Werner. So I feel that Hill on as a substitute probably wasn't the right move. I think that, largely speaking, it's about the combination of the players, and Hill isn't the right player for that particular game state.
And of course, in the 89th minute, Dragusin came on, Højbjerg went off. Josh, what did you make of the equaliser in the 92nd minute?
Just disappointing. I just felt my heart sink. It's just that same old feeling. And Branthwaite, he's a big boy. Good finish. It's just frustrating, isn't it, Chris? Just to think that would be a good result, getting 3 points away at Everton against a difficult side. Thought it was in the bag, although it'd been ebbs and flows, and to throw it away in the 94th minute is frustrating. I mean, I can't imagine what the away end must have been very happy, Chris. What was it? What was the kind of consensus?
Quiet disappointment, but I think that, like I said earlier, I think that everyone can see that we're going in the right direction. You know, we know that positive things are happening. Frustrating result today, but we're sitting in the top 4, and I think that a lot of us at the start of the season or in the summer didn't think that we'd be anywhere near the top 4. So the fact that we are, and the fact that we've had all of these issues and problems, I think that we can all see, what direction we're going in. Next up, of course, is Brighton at home in the Premier League. Now, when I look at the next 6 fixtures, Brighton, Wolves, Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, Fulham and Luton. Now, we've got at least 1 week between each of these games. 2 of these games have actually got 2-week breaks between these games. Dustin, how do you see this Brighton game going? Because, of course, on the 28th of December, we lost 4-2 away to Brighton. Brighton have struggled since. Only the other day lost 4-0 away at Luton. De Zerbi has done a fantastic job at Brighton, but they're not the side that we are used to seeing in the last couple of years. What have you made of Brighton, and how do you see the game going next week?
Dare I say, Dr. Tottenham will see you now? I think that, we should break this
You've got to stop saying that.
We have to break this trend of gifting teams a momentum shift back in the right direction, right? So we have to close the game out. Now, Brighton, is it at home or away?
We're at home.
Okay. I feel better about being at home, and I feel better about having hopefully more players back by then. What I worry about actually is injuries, and it feels like this is a macro trend because we started playing out so much more injury time, and it's not just us. Newcastle and other teams have started having a lot more injuries. So my concern actually is, are we going to have a new normal where we have to count on players being injured? The idea of being injury-free the whole season will be, a figment of our imagination from the distant past. Because if we're going to play this many minutes, I think that's almost inevitable that we're going to lose players to injury. And I also worry sometimes a bit about our medical team, because when Kane started getting his own fitness team, that's when he went a season and a half, 2 seasons injury free. So I wonder whether there's more that we need to be doing from a medical team perspective to keep our players fit as well, because it's concerning the amount of players we've lost. I mean, other teams have lost players too, but it just seems that we have a lot of soft tissue injuries that aren't from bad tackles, but are from should be preventable soft tissue injuries.
As we actually record this podcast, Brighton are 3-0 up at home against Crystal Palace. Wow. Josh, how do you see the game next week?
Yeah, I'm more confident that we're at home. I see they're 3-0 as well, up against their rivals as well. Big derby for them. They're a good side. They are a good side, Brighton. Credit to them. They've not had as good a season as they did last year. But yeah, I think it'll be a tough game. De Zerbi's a good manager. But being at home, I think we'll grind out. Definitely, I think we can grind out the three points with our support behind the team.
What's your score prediction, Josh, for that game?
I might. Do you know what? Just because the boys have been a bit leggy. What is the game's on the 10th, isn't it, Chris? So it's in a week, I think.
Next Saturday.
I reckon 2-1, Chris. I think it might be a bit more. I think we'll be a bit more dominant. Maybe it's slightly similar to the Brentford game. I'm going 2-1.
Dustin, your score prediction, and I also wanted to ask you both your thoughts. Lastly, on the transfer window, are you happy with the transfer window? And also, in the summer, what do you expect Spurs to do?
Score prediction 5-3. Why not? We both play fan for attacking football, so let's go for a high score. I think that might happen. I'm quite happy with the transfer window. I think that a combination of Paratici as a consultant and augmenting that with data, I really like the trend of us signing players that we don't use now, and it's frustrating for fans sometimes because we want him in now, but Sa spent the season at Mets, and then it went a lot better for us when he came back as a fully formed player ready to come into the first team. Same with Udoji. So I think that if we make more signings like that, it's a sign that we're preparing for the future. And in the meantime, we make signings for now. So I think that there is an upward trend in the way we're thinking about signings, the way they're using data now, and the way that we have a manager now that isn't sign this expensive 30-year-old. It's I will work with the football side, sign players that are good for the team now, but also 2 or 3 seasons in the future. And it feels like we now have a production line of talent that will come, rather than we lose all of these players like Vertonghen, Alderweireld. We lose them all at one shot, and suddenly the team is completely hollowed out when players age out of their contracts.
What about you, Josh, on the transfer window?
Yeah, I was happy with that. I thought we did. It's good that we shipped out a lot of the deadwood, getting rid of a lot of players. I thought the incoming players happy. Werner, with Son going, I'm happy that Werner's coming just a cover. Not sure if we'll buy him, Chris. Do you think we're going to buy Werner at the end of the season?
I think there's a fair few games to go, and I think that if Ange can get the very best out of him, I wouldn't be at all surprised. And I actually think it would be a good, clever move from Spurs. I have confidence that Ange can get a lot more out of some of these players, which is another exciting thing for the future. So you never know.
Yeah, I agree. I thought those 2 assists he did the other day, I thought they were quality, and that showed he's got something to him. Because a lot of opposition fans have got some Chelsea mates saying, yeah, he's quick, got a lot of passion, but his end product is no good. But that game where he got those 2 assists, that he showed something promising there. And if he can continue that, I think that's going to benefit us a lot. Other players, Dragusin obviously coming in, good to ship out Dyer and bring in a confident centre-back. Worried a little bit from today, just how physical he is, barging people around. But obviously the jury's out, as Josh you said. We've got to see much more of him. It's just a shame we're just not in the cups anymore, because that would be a perfect opportunity to play him in and rest a Romero or Van de Ven. But yeah, the transfer window, I don't think we could have done much more. Obviously, we brought in this young boy. Everyone's saying he's the most promising boy in Europe or so. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, Chris. I've never heard of him before. I've never heard of this boy before. But he looks from the typical the videos that everyone posts online. He looks like a talent, and obviously other clubs were after him. So I'm glad we picked Barcelona to him, and he looks like a decent player. And I'm sure once he gets some minutes, hopefully he can be a bit like Sarr, a young boy who can come in and show off his talent a bit, because he looks like one.
Can I just ask you one final question? Just give me one word. Who you think will win the Premier League at the end of the season?
Dustin?
Spurs. Of course.
Really?
Why not?
Josh?
It's mathematically possible.
Okay.
Oh no, 2 words, Chris. Man City. Unfortunately, it's going to be same old. In my opinion, now with their players back, it's going to be Man City. What about you, Chris?
Well, I agree with one of you. You can guess who. Man City all the way, I think. Yeah. Josh, thanks so much for joining me this evening or this afternoon to talk about this 2-2 draw. Look forward to having you back on the channel very soon. Where can people find you and what you're up to at the moment?
Yeah, I'm back on Twitter. That's actually my name and my account, or whether it's called the Twitter handle or X handle, as it's now called. Yeah, I'm just at uni. In the background, I can hear Exeter City losing against Bristol there, because I'm right by the stadium. Just last term of uni, trying to fit in watching Tottenham with doing exams and all sorts. Very, very tough. But yeah, it's a pleasure to come on, Chris, and hopefully I'll meet up with you soon at the stadium and be able to watch the boys. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Josh. And Dustin, thanks so much for coming back. I know we're now in the early hours of the morning in Singapore, so thanks so much for your time. Where can people find you?
It's my tag over there. Whenever I try to spell it, I butcher it. That's why I've left it on the screen. But yeah, it's Luminoir, Luminoir. I got it.
Well, Dustin, look forward to having you back on the show very soon as well. So thanks so much for your time. Dustin, Josh, and the other Josh, thank you so much. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. And until the next time, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.